Get stopped, and now we have Michael Hetrick with Jace, the Mind Sculptor, on the board. It looks like he has...
I see Enlightened Tutor, Force of Will, and then Caracas. And it looks like he's putting some cards back, but I can't quite make out what's left there for him. In with Vendilion Click. Word on the street from our man Glenn Jones. Who?
Yes.
Glenn Jones is telling me that Marius Chiloa has just defeated James Higginbottom in the Rug Mirror match. Some final burn spells to wrap that match up.
2-1.
That's 2-1. Back to this match. Joe Lossett, it's his turn now. He's dealing with a Jace on the table and a counterbalance. He has a top and a counterbalance. They both can affect the top of their libraries. Joe can do his dynamically, and Michael Hetrick, though, he can do this with continual card advantage. Also, if he has a spell he wants to resolve, if his Jace is still out, he can always, as long as it's not a 1 casting cost spell, try to mess with the top. The top can retry to reset the top of the library. But if he wants to take that extra risk, he can do that. And it's also along the way to making Jace actually perform a kill.
Okay, he passes back. The Enlightened Tutor he gets back in his hand. Interesting here to see. Okay, he is going to brainstorm himself here. There he has Force of Will, Enlightened Tutor. Again, looks like he wants to put Enlightened Tutor back onto the top of his thing there. He has... All right, there he goes. Drops the Crocus, passes turn. 1 for Brainstorm.
This is such an interesting duel, and I'm not trying to be ironically referencing the old name for games of Magic. No, these mirror matches, these control mirror matches, really play out for little benefits here and there. Both players trying to scratch out advantages as best they can. Now, the Jason play is obviously very scary. That's an alt art card that I do not know. Perhaps a disenchant?
Yeah.
Okay, when we get some deck lists, then we'll be able to tell you. Right here, our runner has just brought us some. That looks like that's probably a disenchant from the sideboard for Michael Hetrick. What he's trying to do here is break up the counterbalance combo.
Looks like land.
Joe Lossett looking for a 2 casting cost spell here to stop the disenchant on counterbalance. And he's got his own disenchant. Wow. Sorry, disenchant. How about this brainstorm? Does that work?
That could look very bad because he could come back and disenchant Michael's counterbalance.
This is actually a real risk. If Michael just tries to show a flip here and it's not a 2... this is Joe's main phase, though. Pardon me. There's no real particular scary danger. Okay. Brainstorm resolves. He's got some cards in his hand. He gets to put 2 back. If you're just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan in the booth with Robert Martin. And out there on the floor, we've got a number of talented people here with us. Ruben Bressler, Lauren Lee, the Ben Sack, many other people. I guess there's also Glenn Jones here. And,
yeah, Glenn Jones. Okay.
If you're at home and you've been watching all weekend, you have been able to witness 53 rounds of Magic the Gathering.
good thing we get to cover every bit of it.
Now,
Because
in some of these rounds, there have been 3 or 4 matches. I think actually 3 is the most we've hit in a single round.
that would be correct. I
Yep,
know that
3.
I know we hit that once.
Our directors are giving me a frowny face for not being mentioned by name.
Hey, without those directors, they can't make. They're the only ones that make us look good.
You know, I've heard that. I think that they do a very good job over there. Right now, we've got director that I like to call New Choi, and he's rocking the house over there. Pyroblast from Michael Hetrick.
Again, trying to stop it, but we. But this is a situation where he cannot. He does not have the land available to just put the top right back on top to use.
Well,
in
part
this
of the
situation.
danger is this, right? We have not seen the top of his library. Is Hetrick playing a long game here where he's going to try to con Joe Lossett into prematurely putting that top back on top? And in reality, there is still waiting in the wings a 1 on top of Michael Hetrick's library so that top, when it is recast by Joe, will get countered?
Ooh.
There's a lot of interaction that happens on this. Obviously, Michael Hetrick wants to destroy that counterbalance. But, you know, Joe has to be careful because it's possible that in trying to do so, he could lose his own combo lock and then just get totally taken over by Jace the Mind Sculptor.
There it is. Spell Pierce.
Wow. Goodbye, Pyroblast. He does not even need to lose the top to make the counter happen. So now we're getting the fetch from the Arid Mesa. What an amazing turn.
There's the volcanic island. And Michael Hetrick trying to play this to his absolute best advantage, do everything he can to get rid of that counterbalance. He's thrown Disenchant at it, Pyroblast at it. He's thrown basically almost the entire kitchen sink at it, and yet every time Joe seems to have the answer.
Now, of course, there is the issue that Michael Hetrick's, that Joe has to deal with. Michael Hetrick has a Jace on the board, and the last time I heard, if you had a Jace on the board, that was pretty good.
Yeah, it's typically a very good position to be in.
Okay, now all of that at the end of Michael Hetrick's turn. Joe Lossett now, untapping, and going to see what he can do to stop Michael Hetrick from making that Jace be his nightmare.
Misty Rainforest, looks like he has in hand Disenchant, Brainstorm, and 2 other cards you can't get a clear picture of.
And Joe is going to try to disenchant, I think, that counterbalance from Michael Hetrick.
There it is. Does he have it?
We see a Force of Will in hand for Michael Hetrick, and I cannot make out the card underneath the Force of Will.
I don't know if it doesn't look like a Snapcaster Mage.
Both of these players represent, I believe, the very last 2 champions of Star City Games Open Series events.
Okay, it resolves.
And Joe Lossett says go. And now Michael Hetrick is going to have to entirely lean on his Jace the Mind Sculptor to try to take this. He goes Brainstorm.
One of the cards he just got back was a counterbalance. All right, Michael Hetrick, Enlightened Tutor in his hand. Force of Will. We know the counterbalance is in his hand. A top. Finally finds his top.
I mean, there's nothing that Joe has done thus far that has done anything against the card advantage that Jace is going to rack up for Michael. Unfortunately for Michael, there are a couple of ways to count card advantage. One is the pure card count, and the other is the concept of virtual card advantage. That pure card count is simply, do you have more cards than the other person? Can you keep getting more cards? Well, more cards is more better. Now, obviously, that's not real English, but yeah. As Jesse says, mo cards, mo problems.
Geist of Saint Traft.
Now we're going to see on the other side of the table with counterbalance top, Joe is not getting more cards, but what he can do is negate the play of cards. Each time he does it, he's stealing a piece of card advantage back, Or alternately, if Michael just chooses not to do things at all, then he's treating Michael's cards as though they're not there. A brainstorm in response from Joe. It's going to be a fight to find a 3 casting cost spell.
This actually might work out very well if he fights for it, because if he makes Michael use his Force of Will / Snapcaster or Force of Will / Counterbalance, Joe's other card is Counterspell in his hand, and he has the mana to cast it once he cracks the Misty Rainforest and with the Volcanic Island in hand.
Now, Michael Hetrick here, he goes for the Force of Will. What he's trying to do here is he really, really wants this Geist of St. Traft to hit the table. There are only, in Joe Lossett's deck, 2 answers left to it. That would be the 2 Terminus that are still in Joe's deck. Now, Joe can also try to match it with Entreat the Angels, but this is a critical moment right now.
As you'll see, he'll crack the land here. I believe he's going to go directly for the Counterspell.
I think he's going to actually use unless he has that Counterspell in his hand.
Yes, he does.
Oh, he does? Okay. I did not see his hand.
Yeah, I saw that. He has the regular Counterspell that most of us grew up playing with.
Now I see a question from Francois LaRoche asking whether or not Michael should consider Fate Sealing with Jace to put pressure on his opponent. The problem is that Fate Seal attempt to win is a 6-turn clock with Jace in order to get the victory. And meanwhile, if he's doing that, Joe is going to be able to do whatever he wants with the Counterbalance top to try to assemble something to threaten him with. And it's very likely that his card quality could overwhelm Michael Hetrick.
Okay, taps 2. There is the Counterspell.
And Michael Hetrick, his Force of Will is countered. We still have the Geist of St. Traft on the stack. The Brainstorm's on the stack. The Brainstorm resolves. And we're looking to put back, I think Joe wants to put back a 3-drop. And then if so doing, he can counter with Counterbalance. There's the 3 of Vendilion Click. Goodbye to Geist of St. Traft. The Star City Games Los Angeles champion facing off against the Star City Games Denver champion.
Wow, nice play there. Okay, and it looks like right now Joe can cast his own Jace.
Jace v. Jace. And we see exactly why Michael did not want to go for the Fate Seal plan, because he would end up with a Jace at 5 or 7 and no resources to show for it.
Okay, top, which will be met by a spin of his own top.
And I see land, and I could not tell. The blue card is a Brainstorm,
Stifle?
maybe? Portent.
Oh.
Portent, an awesome card in Joe Lossett's deck. You're going to have to look this one up to see what it is. Michael Hetrick knows that it's over. He scoops it on up. Portent, check it out, kids. The awesome Ice Age block version of what we now see as Ponder.
Wow.
The difference between the 2 cards, you can actually target